So yeah, my early 20s is kind of when I started playing banjo. And there was a group of folks that were kind of meeting at the bakery where I worked, the Blue Heron Bakery in Olympia, Washington. They're playing music, and I met a couple other ladies there. One played guitar and one played fiddle already. So I said, "Hey, I'll play the banjo in this project." And we started a project pretty quickly. And so I kind of feel like I went through the back door with the traditional music because it was kind of to play with them. And once I had a banjo in my hands, I was started to get curious about bluegrass music and more curious about old time music. But I also was playing punk rock on the banjo and screaming at the top of my lungs and busking up in like San Francisco. And um, it was more about just making sounds at first, and then I kind of started really studying the traditional style around three finger was my first style of banjo. A few years into it, I had a song where my friend wanted me to play clawhammer on it, and so I just learned it for the song and then kind of got into it that way. Somebody showed me some clawhammer techniques and they said be careful. I know a lot of three finger players that switch over, and I always kind of in my back of my mind was like I'm not gonna only be a clawhammer player. Like I like clawhammer a lot, but I'm not switching over, but I do find that it sits alone easier than three finger. So you hear a lot more like of what I put on social media. Yeah, I still play three finger a lot. I mean, in the lowest pair, the latest project that we've been working on with the lowest pair is a collaboration with some other instrumentalists. So it's the other duo is called Small Town Therapy, and they're an incredible instrumental duo. Ripping mandolin and fiddle. Really, really beautiful players, and it's been fun because in that project, they also play some guitar. So in that project, I can play a little more three finger because we're kind of fleshing out the fuller spectrum of it. In the lowest pair, we're both banjo players, and I play more clawhammer than Palmer does, and so I end up playing more clawhammer in that project because two three finger playing is to me that becomes a lot really quickly. Like we have a few songs like that, but we usually are doing a clawhammer and a three finger arrangement, often in different tunings. We're really trying to be a little mindful of how we expose our audience to our banjo habits. So I end up doing a lot less three finger in that regard. But jamming in circles and at home I do play a lot of three finger. Yeah, as of late I have been. Yeah, it's kind of interesting. My social media is definitely that. And yes, it is. In the lowest pair, it is fingerstyle. Almost exclusively now, open tunings. I really like drop D, which is banjo in the middle. It's kind of your DAD. Or, yeah, D, G, B, D in the middle, more or less. So you kind of have these like drones on either side. So I like that because you can implement some of the things you've learned as far as getting around the neck, but you have different drones. Yeah, a lot of fingerstyle. I do think it's hard, and I think it's easy. I think it's luckily it already sounds like a banjo off the top. Like you don't have like I've been trying to pick up a little fiddle, and fiddle's like a little bit like a dying cat for the first year. You don't before it starts to sound anything like the instrument it is, and banjo sounds like the instrument it is. It's kind of I often compare it to like yoga, where it's always good for you to play banjo. Like you get banjo back, and then you get really satisfying sounds in kind of some basic movements, and then you can kind of always just be building on top of that. You can get it's very satisfying, and you can grow with it. So yes, it's very hard and it's very easy. I do suggest if you have a safe place to leave your instruments out, that helps a lot to not have them in a case, because even 5 minutes touching an instrument, I feel like that muscle memory is so useful. Just having regular connection with it and kind of not thinking of it as the thing you aren't doing, and just kind of just touching it a little bit and being a little playful on it. I think a lot of folks want that satisfaction of it being awesome already, and it's really hard to not be good at something. And I think giving yourself permission to be bad at it is very helpful, and just know that it's a long game. Like I love the long game piece of it. Like music is such a nice deep dive that you can always go further. Like you'll never, in my experience, you never achieve. Like if I've ever gotten past the point I was aiming for, I'm already after the next piece of it. It feels like a forever pursuit, and I think that's really special to have. So just don't make it I think the biggest thing is like just don't make it a untouchable or unreachable goal. Like give yourself the like I'm gonna touch it for I'm gonna play 5 minutes and I'm gonna repeat this little bit every day, and that will grow really quickly. Like just 5 minutes a day. I mean 5 minutes is usually if it's 5 minutes is 15 because you're because you're there. The hardest part sometimes is getting it into your lap and actually playing it, and then also not putting it in the wrong like dresser drawer or like the wrong drawer of your like organize your brain where it's work. Like I think of really trying to think of it as like this is a joyful place. Giving yourself 10 minutes to work hard though. I mean I think those like 10-15 minute like increments and not making it like I have to practice inversions for an hour, but I do know that that's the next thing I want to have in my pocket, so I'm gonna do that for 10-15 minutes and then I'm gonna let myself play the song I really want to play, or go back to this tuning that I really liked, or just play something that's comfortable that I remind myself I do know how to play music, and then go back to this hard thing. It all kind of funnels into a practice. I think of like a daily practice, but it's always a little bit different. Even teaching, I think, is a really good way to learn. And so sometimes I do have students, and so sometimes I'm just looking over what they were curious about and making sure I know what I'm talking about when I'm working with them. I usually wake up, I usually write and play, like drink coffee and write for a bit, either just writing or just picking up an instrument and messing around without any intentionalness around it, just with the morning coffee kind of vibe, where a lot of the mantras come from, just exploring a new tuning or just seeing if anything falls out that I'm excited about. I do try to get some sort of practice, like gear, like single string stuff on the 3 fingers still is really hard for me, and I think will help me straighten out some of that linearness of the banjo. I enjoy that a lot, and that's heady, and that's oftentimes I'm not getting the sounds out of that I actually want to share, but I'm learning a lot about theory, or I'm learning a lot about the banjo in G tuning, you know. So there's some practices I try to kind of touch on. I'm a little inconsistent about those though. It's like I'll have a week where I'm really good about it, and then I'll have a week where I'm practicing fiddle again instead of that. Or, but it's all throughout the day. I don't ever have a day where I don't play. And when we're on the road, it feels like I have days where we don't play, but it's really because we're performing. Really, pretty much as soon as I thought I might be a songwriter, I started performing songs before I had written them. I remember like some of the first shows. When I moved to Olympia, I definitely told people I was a songwriter, but I hadn't actually written a full song yet. So I would play half of a song at a coffee shop and be like, that's all I got. And so I do think kind of introducing myself as a songwriter before I wrote full songs helped me create a community around people that were also interested in writing songs. And I had a good friend that was like, if you just repeat that verse a couple times, now it's a chorus, and now you have a whole song. Yeah, and luckily with the other like 2 women that we started this project called the Blackberry Bushes in Olympia in my early 20s, and there was such a great community for it. They were just down before we even really were very good. We had something that was magical, that was just the 3 of us like singing and having a good time and making fun sounds on our instruments and learning like the kind of early bluegrass repertoire, and we had a lot of support around that. So it was fun to learn because we had a place for it. Well, primarily on the road, I'm with the Lois pair, our duo. It's a really nice. It's a really nice shape, and we were really purposeful when we started the project because we're both songwriters, we're both banjo players, we're both banjo nerds. We studied traditional styles, but we're both kind of weirdos in our output and what we're interested in pursuing. And so we promised each other when we started the project that we wouldn't box ourselves into any to too much of a specific genre, and we've given ourselves a lot of freedom. That, and only having two people has been helpful because we can kind of wax and wane with our energy for how much we want to be on the road and what we're working on. But we both have studied traditional styles of banjo and like to geek out on old time tunes these days. And the last record we put out, well, the last two records, we put out a record in 2020 that we recorded at the ARC Studios in Omaha, Nebraska, with Mike Mogus, who's an incredible producer. We had a drummer, JT Bates, come down from Minneapolis. We had Miwi La Lupa on the bass, and it was kind of had a little bit more of a rock outfit sound. It was really cool production and really fun to hear these songs like with a lot of drive. Because before that, we'd only done the duo, mostly just all the records were just the two of us. And then this last record was more of a string band vibe with the Small Town Therapy guys playing. We have like 4 instrumentals on it and still songwriting, but it's like it's more acoustic. Like I'll record 20 minutes of playing an instrumental on my phone, and I go for these long runs, and I would just kind of hear that I really liked where they started and where they went to, and they would maybe end up in something completely different. But I found that I actually enjoyed that 20 minutes of music. Like it's kind of fun to watch something start here and then go there, and that was all instrumental, and I really liked that. And I also was getting really good feedback on my social medias that people liked the stuff that I was kind of sharing, and so really I think because of not only because of the affirmation I was getting back from people being interested in it, I kind of thought, well, I'm gonna go try to record these, and I picked 14 of the ones that I thought were the most interesting to me, and then went to record them. And it's a lot harder. It's a lot harder to consolidate ideas into into pieces, or to get what happens really naturally when you actually aren't trying so hard. It's when you know that you want it to have an arc and a story instrumentally, like in a beginning and an ending, a purposeful beginning and ending. It was trickier to record them than I thought it would be, but I did capture a bunch of them. They're also all in different tunings, so for like maybe what I had done is spent the morning with the tuning and then found the mantra somewhere in that, whereas like trying to just quickly go into a new tuning and find it takes some explore. It takes that morning really. So I had to become a little more familiar with the different tunings I chose. I think there's only one in standard G. There's a few in double C because double C is so pretty. I really like, there's a F tuning where you take your fifth string to F, and then it's G, F, no, it's F, C, F, C, F, C, D. So that's an F tuning that I really like. There's a D tuning where sometimes I'll put the fifth string on a, and sometimes I'll put it on a F sharp, and sometimes I'll put it on a F, and then the lower four strings are D, F sharp, A, D, which is just like a triad, or the root inversion, and then there's also the minor F, like take the F down to F, so F, D, F, A, D, or A, D, F, A, D. It's interesting. I really start to think of the instrumental pieces as they're improv, but there's also like moments that I want to have happen in each song, and so there's kind of a there's this, yeah, it is hard to talk about music sometimes. um, the there's just like these moments you kind of hope happen, but you can build them so differently. Like you can play the same thing. I mean, even in a song with words, like I've noticed, like you can sing it 5 times. It's always a little bit different, and maybe the way that you um, expressed it this one time, it really works. Something magical happened, and there's other times where you sang it the same, it feels like, but it just didn't come across. And I feel similarly with playing, where there's times where I'm like, that just worked. I don't know what happened. Maybe it was where I played it on the banjo. Maybe it was where my brain was. It was so hard to keep your brain from getting busy while playing. It's the worst feeling when you're like, I just freaked out that entire time. Or if you're feeling nervous, or sometimes you're thinking about your grocery list or something, but you're like, to try to stay present but not too pointed on it while playing is kind of interesting, because they are trancy. That's kind of the space I go to in my room, and when I'm just playing around, is they're kind of trancy. I don't know where 20 minutes went, and yeah, I started calling them mantras without thinking about it that much, and more just because they were repetitive, and kind of, I think of a mantra as being something you kind of say to yourself over and over to help you kind of get into the flow, like flow states being really important. And because there's nothing better than a flow state, I think, like just finding yourself lost in time. And so they kind of were doing that for me as I was learning and making them up. So I started calling them that, and it's kind of funny. It kind of just worked as a phrase and an easy way to describe, a great umbrella phrase for them. But yeah, I think that just exactly that. They're repetitive. Ideally, they help you lose yourself a little bit. For me, they do. For me, I'll lose time for a bit, and that's very pleasurable. It's scheduled to drop in early March. I was hoping to kind of get it out earlier. Like I have it, and I'm gonna actually do a Kickstarter where I think I'm gonna make it available before the holidays for folks too. But as far as how the singles come out and how it gets into the web world and the in the streaming world, it's scheduled to come out in March, early March. Honestly, Instagram is the platform that I interact with the most regularly. I just started a website because the mantra record is going to come out, or I restarted a website. The mantra record is going to come out, and that will be available there. And trying to get all my ducks on a row and in a row on the interwebs. But yeah, Instagram, for better or for worse, is where I tend to spend the most time. I just started a TikTok too, but I don't quite know if that's for me, but it's there. And I'm basically sharing the same things I'm sharing on Instagram there. Yeah, that's the one I interact with the most. But I'll have a tour schedule on the Lois Pairs website, and a tour schedule. If I do some, I hope to do some Banjo Mantra touring too. I'll do that on my website. Yeah.